Hello, everybody. So, in our chapter 5, in our really brief introduction to AI, where we got this spider patrolling, mentioned offhandly that we'd have a video on how to do a couple more AIing kind of things to our spider. One of which is, what if we don't want the spider to patrol at all? Just want him to stand there. For instance, maybe later on we want this spider to just stand on a bridge and not walk around. And the other possibility was, well, what if I just want the spider to randomly wander around my world? So we're going to kind of show you both of these. The first one, the being stationary, is pretty straightforward. The one on wandering around the world is not overly difficult. It's just a case of, once again, really forcing ourselves to think about what we need before we try to do it at all. The other kind of caveat on the random one is that we're not going to worry about establishing parameters for it so that it moves in a favored direction, or so that it avoid, I mean, it's conceivable that my spider will walk off my test platform here because it's just going randomly, and yeah, that could happen. Oh well. At the moment, that is part of what we're doing. This is not in any way intended to be an advanced topic on random movement, on AI decision of movement vectors and things like that. That really isn't the intention here. We're just playing around with some concepts just so we can kind of see how things could be done, because these could be relevant in a lot of various game creation situations. So the first one we're going to take on here, and you can see I've got this loaded up where we've left it off, really, at kind of at this point in the chapter. Well, actually, this is near the end of the chapter, really, because I've even corrected. I've in my spider. If I go ahead and select my spider out here, where are you, spider? So I've got my come on, spider. There's my spider. So if I go into my spider, I've actually got the full system. Started a health system for when he gets hit by the player, which is one of our exercises to take on at the end of the chapter. But I've got his controller is constructed. Here's his attacking system, so he can attack Sancho. Here is his pursue system, so he can chase Sancho. And here is his patrolling system. And notice it has this finished attacking thing here, which is added later on in the chapter, not at the point that this video is mentioned, but later on in the chapter, after basically the idea here, and we discuss it in the book as well, is that once you finish attacking the player, for instance, the player, if we think about it, the player right here might have panicked and run way over here, and the spider's killed him over here. Well, instead of the spider wandering all the way back to this point that it was trying to get to, it'll pick the closest waypoint of those four, and it'll just go to that one and continue its patrolling from there, which makes sense. Makes more sense to kind of do it that way, and that's what we've got going on here, where we finished attacking, and then we find the closest waypoint among our waypoints and set that equal to the next target. And as I mentioned, we've got the specific steps for doing that in the chapter. So what we want to do here, though, is recognize a couple of things. Once again, these are added later on, but kind of highlight these because we're going to be using these inside this patrol. And just a side note at this point, well, why not just use the version that we've got built at this point in the chapter? Predominantly because we're going to have to go back and tweak things, and it's easiest just to wait until we've got this whole system in place and then do our little AI tweaks. So for instance, if you look at this patrol, where we enable the patrolling FSM, right underneath it we're using what's called a global transition right here, or a global event, to fire that finished attacking, so that when it comes back in here after attacking, it fires that global event to figure out, hey, where do I need to go? That also means when it comes in here for the very first time, it fires that. So as far as setting this up so that we don't go into this right here, we can't just introduce some state right here. We have to recognize how this whole system has been designed at this point in time. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and get our system to stop patrolling. So if this is where this is our actual entrance into our state machine. Yeah, I know it says start, but it actually fires right here. So if this is our entrance, what we're going to need is a way to get kicked out of here and into some other state. Let's say I'm going to create another state here, and I'm going to call this other state idle. And that's just my spider idling. And I'm going to need an event right here. So let's create an event, and let's call this event go idle. Why not? So we'll come back to our state here. We'll do an add transition go idle and come over here. Okay, there we go. So we've got that in place. So now we're ready to go ahead and populate these. Now before I just start throwing actions in, I don't have a whiteboard, so I can't like diagram what we're going to be doing and whatnot, and do our bulleted lists and all of that as we've been doing in the chapter. So I'm going to kind of let's see. Let's load up Notepad. That might be a good approach to this. So I'll just load up Notepad, and we can kind of use this as a brainstorm kind of approach here. Let me increase my font quite a bit. Okay, there we go. So what do I need to do here? Well, I need to come in here and is spider going to patrol? Then I will say yes. Okay, go get a waypoint and do it, right? No. Stay still and idle. All right. So there is our question that we've got. Is our spider going to patrol? Yes, he is. Okay, go get a waypoint and do it. Okay, we've already got all of that is already in place. So the reason to kind of be typing this out and thinking about this before we start doing anything is to recognize that this part right here, it's already there. This part is already in place. We don't have to redo this. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, because it's already there. It's already made. It already works. This is the part that we're working on. So we're working on this. How do we say no, go just be still and idle? Okay, so now that we know what we're doing, we can recognize what we've got here is we have an if statement with a yes and a no, right? And this yes is just going to behave normally, and this no is going to kick us out and have us do something else. Okay, so with that done, in order for our if statement to work, we're going to need a variable in here so that we can store whether we are patrolling, yes, or not patrolling, no. Okay, so let's go to our variables. And I'm going to create a Boolean variable which stores a true, false, yes, no value. And I'm going to call this is stationary, or is patrolling, whatever. So I'm going to call this is stationary. It is going to be an inspector variable, and under my tooltip, I'm going to go ahead and add here toggle to keep spider from moving. Okay, yeah, make the spider just stand still. Now, if is stationary is false, it's just going to go on and do everything. So is spider going on patrol? Okay, let's reword this. Is spider stationary? Yes, he is stationary. Stay still and idle. No, he is not stationary. Go get waypoint and move. Okay, so just kind of moved things around. I created my initial question, then I got into my YouTube, or into my variables over here, and started creating something, and came back here to reword my design idea, this iterative approach, so that way I can kind of tweak my design so that it goes along with what I'm actually making here. Okay, so if my spider is stationary, then we're going to stay still and idle. Otherwise, we're going to go to our waypoint and move. Alright, so let's say find closest waypoint right here. This is where we want to ask the question. So we're going to go to our action browser, and the question I want to ask is going to be a bool test. So let's throw that out here, and I want to ask it first. This is the very first thing I do when I get in here, right away. And how do I know it's the very first thing? Because right here, this tells me If this, oops, dang it, quit it. If this variable is false, we're going to go get a waypoint and move. And that's what this is doing right down here. Find the closest waypoint, put it in all of that. That is what that is doing right there. And then it goes and moves, so you can see that. So that's why we're going to do this test first. So my variables is stationary, and if it is true, I'm going to stay still and idle. So is true is going to be my go idle. And over here in idle, I'm going to go ahead and do an action browser with a play animation because I said I wanted to idle. Okay, well I should actually make it do that then. So I'm going to play animation, add that, and the animation I'm going to play is going to be idle. Alright, so let's see if this works. So let me move my playmaker out of the way, including my actions. And let's go find our spider. Scroll down here. And is stationary is false. I'm going to make it true. Alright, so let's see if our spider stays still. So we'll run this real quick. And let's see, what is my spider doing? Well, he's not moving for one thing, and he's idling. And we can double check. We can come over here. He is idling. Hey, that wasn't too bad. It involved really recognizing how this system was already working. And then from that, where we kind of branch off from here, where we do this. Okay. All right. Not bad. Okay, so we got that part working. So the next part, we wanted to add a little random thing. So instead of going to a waypoint that the designer has put out there somewhere, we're going to do something else. So let's see. Let's design this again. Is spider moving randomly? Yes. Okay, we got to do some stuff. Yes. Okay, what do we have to do if we are moving randomly? Well, let's see. Let's pick a random location. Go to a random location. Repeat. Alright, cool. Not bad. No, we are not moving randomly. So no. Alright, no is going to be grab a waypoint. Point has a T in it. Move to waypoint. Repeat. And let's get rid of grab A and make this grab next. Okay. Alright, now here's what I want you to recognize. This part right here, we've already done it. Okay? That's what's going on right here. Get next waypoint, move. Get next waypoint, move. Get next waypoint, move. That's what's going on right there. This is already done. This is what we've got to add right here. Now, what we just learned from doing our spider stationary one, we just saw how we can kind of put this together. We ask a question up here at the top of this one. If it's yes, we go off to another one and do some stuff. Just like what we did here. If it's no, then go right on and do what we've already got in place. This is really kind of a big thing here, because a lot of times when we're asked to like add to this, we'll go off and make a new state machine, or we'll go off and just like start stripping everything out of all of this. Force yourself to slow down, think about what you need to do, type it out like this even, and then look at what you've got, recognize what you've already got. We should at this point be pretty quick to say, hey, we've already got this part. This part, we've already built this. I don't want to build it again. I mean, sure, I could, but why? It's already built. It already works. It does what I need it to. Let's leave it alone. All we need to do is figure out, how can I jump out of that and just do this? Okay, well, we know what we're after, so let's go ahead and do this real quick. We're going to need an event. Let's call this event, I'm going to say, let's call this, I don't know what to call this, random movement. I mean, that doesn't really sound like an event. That sounds like a state, really. So I'm going to say, go random. Okay. That's what I'm going to say. Go random. Okay. And I'm going to need a variable, just like what we did with our is stationary. So I'm going to call this is random movement. And this is also going to be a bool. Add that. And let's see, false by default. Let's do a tooltip here, and we'll call this toggle to make spider move randomly in game world. There we go. Make it an inspector. Okay, we're doing well so far. We're going to need a state out here. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to add a state. And this state, I'm going to call this random movement, like so. Get next waypoint. I'm going to add a transition. This is going to be go random. There it is. And go random is going to come up here to random movement. My get next waypoint, I'm going to throw in my bool test. Action browser. Bool test, like so. This has to come first. The bool I want to look at is going to be is random movement. If this is true, we're going to go random. Don't need to do it every frame. And boom, there we go. Now, one more thing here. Because right here we have this find closest, and this is looking inside the waypoint. So if we're working this way, if we're doing this random system, then when this gets fired, we're going to have to do it as well. So let's go action browser, throw another bool test into here, and this other bool test is going to go underneath my is stationary. Let's do is random movement. If it is true, we're going to do a go random. We're going to add a go random, and it's going to come up here to finish, or up here to random movement. Random movement is missing an N. I've been staring at that wondering why it looked wrong. There we go. Okay, now when random movement is done, it is going to finish and go down here. Now I'm not going to do that just yet because it's going to create an infinite loop. What I do want to see is I just want to see if this is working so far. A little bit of iterative testing. So come over here, we have our is stationary. Let's turn our is stationary off. Is random movement, let's turn that one on. Alright, let's go with a play. And he's just sitting there. I know he's not being stationary. How do I know he's not being stationary? Because he's not idling, for one thing. He's not idling. For another thing, I can look over here and I can see that he is sitting inside random movement. We're good to go. Alright. So let's go back to our notepad here. And let's do something. We're going to do a random movement. Okay, how does our random movement work? Well, pick a random location. Look at random location. Move to random location. Repeat. Alright. Now, something about this. In our actual movement, instead of moving to a random location, we did a move to game object. Okay? That's what we did. Now, what we were actually doing was moving to the transform position of this location. That's what we were actually doing. But as far as the playmaker, the action went, we were moving to a game object. Okay, so we've got to pick a random location, look at a random location, and move to a random location. Alright, so what do we know? What do we know? We know a random location is going to equal a position. Okay, what do we know about a position? A position is going to equal a no, let's not do it that way. A position is going to equal a x, y, and a z, right? And an x, y, and a z is going to equal a vector 3, one of our data types that we talked about. So I'm going to be picking a random vector 3, and I'm going to be looking at a random vector 3, and I'm going to be moving to a random vector 3. All right, pretty easy so far. Okay, pick a random vector 3. That makes it sound like we've got a bunch of vector 3s out there and we're just picking a random one from it. So what we actually want to do here, let's break this one down a little bit, and we want to no, let's do it this way. So where we've got this pick a random vector 3, let's start renaming some stuff, and we're going through this design process. And what we're doing here in this design process is we're breaking it down into smaller and smaller steps as we're recognizing things, so that when we go to build it, we're going to be more prepared to build it. So this pick a random vector 3, what do I actually want to do here? I want to assign a random x and a random z to a vector 3. Okay. There we go. All right, instead of this and, let's do this. Assign a random z. Let's break this down to individual steps. Okay, so I'm going to want to assign a random x to a vector 3 and assign a random z to a vector 3. Why did I not assign a random y? I mean, if a vector 3 is an x, y, z, why did I not assign a random y? Well, let's do this. Let's do assign a random y. Why is that not there? Okay, so here we go. We've got all of these. Now, this x, y, and z that is inside here equals floats. These are all floating point variables. So x is a float, y is a float, and z is a float. So we're going to have some variables here. Okay. So what variables am I seeing here? I've got a random x, I've got a random z, and I've got a vector 3. I need these 3 variables. So I'm going to go ahead and create those variables, and then I'm going to go through and figure out how it is I do this right here. So let me start off with creating my variables. So let's see, my spider. Let's pull my spider back over here. Let's go to our variables, and I am going to have a float. I'm going to call this random x. Add it. I'm going to have a float. I'm going to call this random z and add it. And then I'm going to have a vector 3. I'm going to call this random position. And I'm going to add that as a vector 3 and add that. All right, there's my 3 variables. So now I'm ready to start putting some stuff together. Okay, so let's kind of leverage what we already know. Let's go to our moving one down here, and let's take a look at what it's got. So let me move this over here a little bit. Let me move this over here. Okay, so our moving has a look at. Hey, that's pretty nice. We got a look at right there. It has a play animation. Oh, we completely missed a play animation in here. Not surprising. And it has a move towards. Okay, so it's got this look at, move towards, and this play animation. So what I'm thinking is that this has all of this stuff that I need. So I'm just going to grab these and copy them over into my new one. So let's go with this. Hold down shift, click my gear, do a copy selected actions, go to random movement, right click, and let's paste our actions. Okay, now we have this finished event right here. Okay, so I'm seeing this error right here, and this error is because this finished event isn't there. So let's right click, add transition, finished, and we already knew what we had to do with it. It had to come back here to get our next waypoint, and we come back into our next waypoint. If we're doing a random, we come back up here. Nice. If we're done attacking, we do a random, we come back over here. Nice. So we're bypassing all of that stuff. All of that stuff is just staying there because it worked. All right, so now let's take a look at what we put up here. So our play animation, that's fine. I'm just going to kind of get it out of my way. I've got this smooth look at and this move towards. Now here's what I want you to notice. There. Let me get this. Let me grab this differently. There we go. These are supposed to look at and move towards a vector 3, whereas what we're doing here is we're doing a target object. Now, notice this. Random location equals a position. Position equals xyz. Xyz equals vector 3. Let's go backwards. Vector 3 equals xyz, and xyz equals position. Therefore, vector 3 equals a position. Position. Here we go. So let's turn off target object, and we're going to use random position. Move towards. Let's turn off target object, and let's use random position. Okay, now let me go back to a question I asked earlier. Why did I not assign a random y? Because we're ignoring the vertical. Well, what's y got to do with vertical? Y is our vertical. I'm ignoring it. So it doesn't matter what I put there because I'm going to ignore it. So there we go. All right. Now we've got this and this, and we can almost do a, can I do font? I can't do a strike through. Okay. Well, those are done. So now what we've got to do is we've got to assign these values here. Now this is going to take a little bit more, so let me kind of show you what we've got going on here. So I'm going to get into my actions, and if I type a vector 3, and if we take a look at some stuff and just kind of start piecing things together, we've got a set vector 3 value. Sets the value of a vector 3 variable. Okay, and it's got a value thing here with an x, y, z. Notice this is a vector 3 value. Let me add this out here. I just wanted to add 1 though. So let me just add this 1, remove that. So my vector 3 is going to be random position, and I want to set it to a vector 3. Okay, that's not going to help me. So that's not going to help me at all. Let me remove that. Let's see. Can I just... no, let me stay on this, because ultimately I'm trying to get a random x and a random z into my vector 3. So let's see. Set vector 3 xyz. Sets the xyz of the vector 3 variable. To leave it unchanged, set the variable to none. Alright, let's see. Add action to state. Okay, now this one, I can set it to a vector 3 value. If I go with I'm going to put my random position there. If I had one, I could do that. But if I don't, I could do my random x and my random z. Okay, so I've got my random x and my random z set into my vector 3. Do I have anything else here? I'm really looking at this set. Do I have, I can set a vector 3 in another state machine. That doesn't help me. Add, clamp, high pass, interpolate, lerp, linear interpolation, operator, rotate towards, subtract. These are the only 2 options I have. Wait, hold on, I've got to select random vector 3. What does that do? Selects a random vector 3 from a vector 3 array. Nope, I don't have a vector 3 array. This is what I wanted right here, where I can set that and that. Okay, so now I've got to set my random x and random z. Okay, well, random x, let's just worry about one of them. Random x was a float, right? So let me see, float. What do we have here? And I'm just going to kind of browse through here. We got a set material float. No. Hey, what's this? Sets a float variable to a random value between min and max. Hey, that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to set this. I'm going to set random x and 0. Okay, yeah, I'll do 0. No, I won't. I am going to do -5 to +5. Yeah. And then I'm going to add another one of these, and this is going to be my random z. I'm also going to do -5 to +5. Okay. What do we have? Let's see what happens. Okay, first thing we're going to have to do is move Sancho so that our spider does not get excited and go off and try to kill him. So let's put Sancho way over there. Okay, spider, let's test you out. What are you doing? So we're going to go ahead and play this. Play. Okay, he is going there. All right, and Sancho is, yeah, bye, Sancho. Have a good time down there. Okay, so he's going over there. Let's see what he does once he gets there. Now, that's not one of my waypoints. This is working. Oh, hey, he's going over there. Oops. Come back here, spider. Oh, and now he's going over there. Random movement. Wasn't that hard to put this together. Now, if I really want, I mean, at this point in our logic structure, that a little challenging, but once you kind of see the pieces that I put into it, you recognize that there wasn't a lot of complex stuff there. The key to what we just did was forcing ourselves to do that early design and just step through it carefully and piece by piece so that we knew what it was we wanted to do before we ever tried to make it do something. We didn't just launch up Playmaker and start throwing actions around. That is the biggest mistake that that learning programming students do, whether you're learning with Playmaker or you're learning with C Sharp or C++ or whatever language you're using, whatever visual scripting tool you're using. The biggest mistake that we make when we're learning is just jumping straight into that tool and just start throwing stuff at it until it works. You need to design. Force yourself to do this design. So that way you know what it is you want it to do. And one of the key things I really want you to see is that I noticed by forcing that design that all I was going to have to do to get this to work was add two states to it and leave the rest of this alone. Except for asking a question to kick out and kick out and kick out. Otherwise, don't touch it because it works. Um, and that's all done in the design. And you can see our spiders just randomly moving around. And that's a really cool, nice little feature. So when we get on into our game world, we now have three different types of spiders we can put out there. I can put a spider out there that patrols a scripted environment. Scripted behavior. We talked about that in our AI system. I can put out another spider that just stands in a location that almost works as a boundary. And we're going to talk about boundaries when we build our level. You know, we have natural and artificial boundaries for our system. And so I could put a spider, a threshold guardian, on, oh, say, a bridge. And he just stands there and doesn't move. And that becomes a boundary of sorts. And then the final option is that I can just throw a spider out into my forested area or even into my sheep area or my town or whatever, and he just kind of wanders randomly and just moves around. The player may or may not bump into him. It's just some little random flavor thrown into the game. Okay, so this really kind of went above and beyond what we did in our little chapter on AI and getting this spider moving. So the whole purpose of this was really to just add to our knowledge, add to our tool belt, add to our seeing design being done and seeing how we can go through Playmaker and find some actions that we needed. Any questions on this, just drop me a question down below. Get back to it as soon as I can. Hopefully this was helpful. Other than that, have a good day. Bye-bye.